Welcome back and thanks for joining the channel again. Today, I'm taking a little different route, uh, and I'm not going to tell a little story. I'm just going to tell a history. And the title of this history lesson is How Many Hotels Can a Small Town Hold? The small settlement at the foot of the lake was Lake Pleasant until 1864, when Joel Newton built a small store at the hotel in the center of town and secured a post office with the name Newton's Corners. At that time, Page Hill and Page Street were included in Newton's Corners. Joel's structure burned down in 1870, and in 1871, the Newton's Corners post office was reopened in the Satterley store. Henry Dunning then built a hotel in 1882 where Newton's Hotel had been, and the post office was then moved there. And in 1896, the community received a new name, Speculator, after the mountain seen across the lake on the south side. Well, according to Google AI and a search on Wikipedia and some Facebook posts, Newton, as I said, had built the first small hotel. And the rest of this story continues on to help you understand why having all these hotels was so important. And I believe that since the settlement had its first hotel here in 1864, the main attraction was the abundant hunting and fishing that can be had in the Adirondack Mountains, its vast harvesting of forest for tanning, pulp for paper, and construction lumber, its many, many, many lakes, streams, and miles of wilderness camping and hunting, and for some, just the quiet getaway from the bustling city life of the Industrial Revolution. Just to put this posting topic in perspective, the U.S. Census for Speculator in 2022 was 406, and now estimated around 400 to 410 full-time residents. You can just imagine what the census would have been for Newton's Corners in 1896 when it was named Speculator. Maybe 40? For so many venturing to this outdoor playground, there was an abundant need for hotels, restaurants, and other sources of boarding. But hotels would be the main industry for short term visits right up until shortly after World War II. Let me give you a little tour. As you enter Speculator from the south, the vacationer would be greeted by the Grand Osborne Inn. This was a 3-story hotel that majestically overlooked the eastern shore of Lake Pleasant. And this hotel was operated from 1901 right up through the early 1860s. And I can remember attending a birthday party held there for one of my classmates. He was a great grandson of the original owner, William Osborne, and his wife, Nora, that died in 1961. And I believe it was my classmate's 5th or 6th birthday. So that'd be 1960, 1961 that I attended. And his his grandfather then and great uncle ran the hotel until 1963. The hotel was then demolished in 1969, sadly. What a landmark. And I want to thank Mark Frieden and his Facebook page called The History and Legends of the Adirondacks. He gives a wonderful history of the many hotels here in the Speculator area. A short way up Main Street was the Graham's Hotel. This was my great grandfather's establishment. The hotel was established around 1870, and I have been told by family members like my mother, aunts, uncles, and even some of the folks who used to frequent the bar and restaurant that the hotel was moved from its original location between the now ambulance building and the public school. DeWitt bought the building from Ernest Brooks, owner of the Brooks Hotel, located right near this building, but my grandfather had it moved down Main Street to its present location. And I've been told that there were a few other buildings that were moved in that fashion to different locations in the early days. I have a few stories to tell about Graham's Hotel, but I'll leave that for another day. Next stop up the street, maybe 200 feet or so, was the Wilbur Hotel and Store, built by and run by Beriah Wilbur in the mid 1870s. Later, this hotel was owned by the Strawbinger family until the early 1950s. Well, let's venture a little further north, maybe just another 200 feet or so, was the Brooks Hotel. Now, this hotel has quite a history. Originally, this hotel was built by Edgar Dunning in 1858, known as the Lake Pleasant House, and later, records show it to have been owned and run as the Brooks Hotel by Ernest and Nora Brooks, circa 1915. Now, this hotel had many names to be remembered by, and the pictures that I show are the same building, but it had names: the Brooks Hotel, the Fountain Hotel, the Lake Pleasant Hotel, the Lake Pleasant House, the Adirondack Hotel, and even records show the Annabelle House. Well, it was located where today's ambulance building is, right at the four corners of Speculator. Just a side note, in Hamilton County, the third largest county in New York State, to my knowledge and verified by Google AI, there still are no permanent traffic lights in the entire county. But many drivers have felt the summer traffic at the four corners could warrant a light from time to time. Next stop, cross the street to where the present bank and post office are located. And there stood the beautiful Sturgis, spelled in some documents Sturgis, others Sturges, after the Sturgis family. So the Sturgis House, being built and established in 1858 by David Sturgis, was a grand hotel. And right across the street to the west, and still standing today, was the Annex, and for many years was run by the Zeisers, and it was called the Zeiser Hotel and Restaurant. I can remember my mother working for the Zeisers when I was a kid. If one could venture north out of the village, continuing on up Main Street, all the way about a mile up the hill, Page Hill, as I mentioned before, one would find the Melody Lodge. This is a very picturesque place to spend the weekend, even today. Well, Melody was established in 1912 by a musician named Allison Van Hoos, and it was a girls' singing school, but later converted to a dining and lodging venue in 1937 by Hamilton and Francis Checker. And I want to thank the Melody Lodge website for this information, and they have some beautiful pictures. Now let's go back down Page Hill to the Four Corners and head west. Well, next stop, maybe a couple hundred, 300 feet, was the Speculator House, run by my wife's great grandparents, Sam and Elizabeth Lawrence. My wife's grandmother, Phoebe Olive Lawrence, shared a couple very interesting stories about the Speculator House and the Methodist Church across the road that happened when she was a little girl, as her parents ran the Speculator House. Well, that building was torn down about late 60s or early 70s, and I remember it as a long yellow building where my sister-in-law lived when she was a young girl. Further west, just before the local movie theater, was the Perkins House. I should say, is the Perkins House. I think it's called Henrietta's Place now. But anyways, this was a boarding house built by George Perkins, a well-known Adirondack guide. His son Ashley and wife Henrietta ran the house well into the 1970s, and I believe one can still get a room for rent today under the present ownership. I got a story or two about that place as well, but that's for another day. Finally, about a 4-mile trip further west, behind where the county Department of Motor Vehicle offices, the jail, the sheriff's office, and other county buildings, was Silas Call's Conjamuck Inn building. Now, there's a river that flows out of Lake Pleasant called the Conjamuck River. Well, Silas built the Conjamuck Inn around 1880. Later, the inn was called Call's Hotel and later called the Sacandaga Lake Hotel. Well, it was located behind the Hamilton County buildings, as I said. And in 1907, J.D. Morley built the Morley Hotel on this site after the Sacandaga Lake Hotel burned down in 1904. You see, many of these hotels did burn down because the main source of heat was burning wood. Very dangerous if not taken care of. Well, this new hotel could accommodate 40 guests. And if they set up the tents like they did during the summer outside, it could house around 250 guests. Can you imagine? Well, according to research, the Morley Hotel had a windmill, a hot air engine to pump water from the nearby Sacandaga Lake. And again, in 1916, this hotel burned down and was rebuilt in 1917 and then known as the Hamilton Inn. My mother told me some stories when she was a young girl that they used to sneak up to the inn and they would ride up and down the outside dumbwaiter where the hotel would take their laundry and food and everything up to the main floors from the kitchen and the laundry rooms. Well, to close out this story of hotels in such a small area, here are a few more local hotel names in that same 4-mile radius that I found from the various sites that I have posted in the description. Number 1 was the Lily Lake House, run by Mrs. David Aird. The Dunham Cottages, managed by Mrs. Charles Denny. And also the Fish Mountain House, owned by George Wright. And then if you continue further west, there was the what I know as the Sacandaga Hotel. And then further on into Piseco, there were hotels all through that establishment. And I still marvel at the amount of hotels and other boarding venues that such a small countryside community could be run and maintained. Today, most folks now have bought property around the community and built summer homes that have all but wiped out the need for these many hotels. Well, as you can see, the story that I've told today, how many hotels can a small town hold, stands quite an enigma. But I have pictures to prove it as you have seen. So, what's your story?